Medium and light bombers participate in the big attack on Casino. On March 15th, marauders of the 319th Bombardment Group, based at Deciommomano Field on the island of Sardinia, take off. The target for today is the town of Casino. Over the Mediterranean, en route to the target, they test their guns. One ship of this group is forced back because of engine trouble, but 35 marauders are over the target at noon. From an altitude of 10,400 feet, they release 60 tons of explosives. No ack-ack or enemy fighters are encountered. A huge cloud of smoke covers the town. The 340th Bombardment Group is based at the Pompeii airfield, almost in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius. These Mitchell crews are veterans, having gone through the desert campaign with the British 8th Army. A B-25 camera ship has been assigned to fly alongside and photograph the bombing of Casino. The group flies 2 missions of 24 Mitchells each. On the first, 1,000-pound bombs are dropped on Casino from an altitude of 9,000 feet. The second mission strikes with 250-pounders and fragmentation bombs against enemy gun positions 2 miles north of Casino. The bomb run is made at 11,000 feet. The town of Casino is hit at 10 and 15-minute intervals all morning. P-40s of the 79th Fighter Group, based at Capitacino Field near Naples, play an important part in the attack. Carrying 1,000-pounders, the fighter bombers hit at enemy concentrations outside Casino and at possible escape routes. A supply concentration in a strongly defended amphitheater is also bombed. Starting at 7,000 feet, the P-40s dive on the target. They release their 1,000-pound bombs and pull out at 1,500. A-20s take off from the Vesuvius airfield to join in the attack on Casino. Based close to the front, this light bomber group is often used against emergency targets, like gun emplacements and troop concentrations. One of our own planes goes down in flames. The 99th Bomb Group, with headquarters in Foggia, Italy, runs a gunnery school that specializes in postgraduate and refresher courses. At this outdoor table, classes are held in the proper procedure for the reduction of stoppages and in disassembling and assembling the 50 caliber machine gun. The gun is then cocked properly to be sure the assembly has been satisfactorily completed. In this shed-like building, various types of turrets are set up to provide plenty of practice for the gunners of the bomb group in turret operation and in smooth tracking. Here, the belly gunner operates the ball turret, and if necessary, corrections are made by the instructor. A chin turret is installed exactly as it would be in the nose of a fortress. The turret controller and column are stowed against the right side of the simulated fuselage and are brought into combat position by the bombardier gunner. An instructor is present to observe and correct. The school has an upper turret installation, too. The gunners of this group are doing a good job on missions, but by attending school on non-operational days, they keep a careful check on their skill and technical knowledge. At Steinbrook House, Chippenham, a vehicle waterproofing school is set up. In preparation for landing any type of ordnance vehicle from barges in shallow water, the 9th Air Service Command started operation of its waterproofing school in England on February 1st. A technique of waterproofing vehicles for short periods of immersion was worked out and standardized. The first stage is waterproofing all parts that are not subjected to great heat. This includes approximately 95% of all the waterproofing. It can be done at any time before leaving for embarkation, but the vehicles must not be driven more than 75 or 100 miles following this. The part to be waterproofed is first taped, in this case the oil intake breather. Extension tubes are placed in the pipe and the vent is taped with 3 strips. Then a petroleum asbestos waterproofing compound is applied. This must be done to all parts of the vehicle that would malfunction in the presence of water. The voltage regulator is another part to be waterproofed. The compound consists of a highly viscous, non-drying, pliable grease of petroleum base, mixed with 22% asbestos fiber. Key non-coms were selected from units anticipating an early need for this training. 40 students for each 1-week course. The students bring their own vehicles, which they work on. Here, a carburetor is waterproofed. After the openings are sealed with friction tape, the waterproofing compound is patted on. The carburetor intake vent must have an extension above water, and the same is true of the oil breather pipe. The carburetor intake extension is a reinforced fiber tubing. The oil breather extension consists of 1 or more lengths of copper tubing. These connections must also be waterproofed at their junction. The open ends are carried back to the cab where they can be held above water. Now the men are shown how to flush the generator using a special flushing compound. The starter is activated as the liquid is poured in. The asbestos waterproof compound is placed around the back of the generator to prevent the loss of flushing fluid. The waterproof compound is removed after the flushing process is completed. It's pulled off by hand, followed by a gasoline wash. The starter switch is sealed after the engine has been started. This is ordinarily done on the loading dock or aboard the landing craft. An intermediate stage of waterproofing may be done up to 10 miles from the loading dock. On a 6x6, it would include waterproofing spark plugs, gasoline tank vent, and brakes. The engine must be cooled during this second stage of treatment. Then comes examination day. Each pupil drives his own vehicle down to the testing stream. He has already completed the second stage of waterproofing. The final stage is done on a mock-up landing barge built of timbers. The student drives into the water just as he would in an actual landing operation. The wading strip was made by digging out the bed of a mill creek, using the mill locks to control the water depth. The water is cold and swift, simulating ocean currents and waves. Through the use of the technique adopted by the school, vehicles have operated underwater for as long as 12 minutes. The goal aimed at is a minimum of 6 minutes. The pupils are often skeptical during the instruction. But on examination day, when each man drives his own vehicle down the stream, and it takes to water as though it were born to swim, all doubts vanish. The graduates of this school are invariably enthusiastic and go on to instruct the individual drivers in their units. Jeeps, personnel carriers, command cars, 6-ton prime movers, half-tracks, and 6x6s are among the types of vehicles waterproofed at the school. The vents to the carburetor intake and oil breather pipes are held above the water surface. When the vehicles emerge, the distributor and battery vents must be opened. Then, under combat conditions, the vehicles can go into action immediately with the remaining waterproofing still in place. Target, Brunswick, Germany. On April 8th, liberators set out for Brunswick, which has been attacked frequently by our Air Force. On this strike, the German Air Force makes its strongest effort at interception so far. Heavy flak is encountered, and 200 single-engine fighters attack aggressively. A liberator goes down. Finally, a parachute is seen coming out of the plane. The main target is two key aircraft component plants. Brunswick is the site of the Wagam fighter bomber assembly plant, which produces Messerschmitt 110s. The target area is covered by a cloud of smoke. The bombers also encounter a smokeless flak for the first time in this area, which is very accurate. Target, Bourges, France. Formations of liberators strike at Bourges on April 10th. Enemy fighter opposition is generally weak. 440 tons of bombs are released over the aircraft assembly plant at Bourges. An office building and 9 barracks are destroyed. 3 large workshops are damaged. Hits are scored on the aerodrome installations and the runway. A pillar of smoke marks the target area. Homeward bound, the planes pass over an unidentified French town. Target, Bernburg, Germany. B-24s strike at aircraft factories in Germany on April 11. 100 of the planes attacked the bomber assembly factory at Bernburg. Flak comes up through a heavy overcast. Our fighters furnish cover. 275 tons of bombs are dropped on the target area. Over this target, fighter opposition is determined and strong. Target, Oberpfaffenhofen, Germany, southwest of Munich. 60 liberators on April 13th again strike at German aircraft production. This time, the objective was the Messerschmitt 410 plant. The formations approach the target at high altitude. Enemy fighters attempt interception. A burning engine leaves a trail of smoke across the sky. 150 tons of bombs are dropped on the airfield and installations. Target, Paderborn, Germany. On April 19th, 175 liberators attack Paderborn. This time, there is no air opposition. 2 airfields at Paderborn and Gütersloh are attacked with good effect. Parapax dropped on newly captured Los Negros. On February 29th, American troops landed on Los Negros, a small island in the Admiralties, a group equidistant from Cavien and Wewak. Air and surface craft supported the action. On the first day of the campaign, we captured the important Momoti airfield, about 610 miles south of Truk and 430 miles east of Hollandia. Damage caused to the aerodrome by destroyer shelling and 5th Air Force bombing before the landing is plainly visible. Establishing positions surrounding Momoti airfield, our troops withstood several vigorous attacks by the numerically superior enemy and inflicted heavy casualties on them. 4 days after the first amphibious landing, B-17s dropped supplies to our troops who are digging in around the strategic airfield. After circling the strip, the forts release their cargoes, which are carried in bins in the bomb bays. Included in the material parachuted to the 1st Cavalry Division below are 40mm Bofors anti-aircraft shells and stretchers. The Coral runway is 4,400 feet long and 375 feet wide, with ample dispersal area, and was reported to be in good condition when captured by our troops. American Seabees are rapidly getting it into shape. The planes dropped the nearby Jap positions and settlements to enable our ground troops to recover the parapacks. Planes of the 41st Troop Carrier Squadron were in the air 5.5 hours on each of these missions. In addition to continual dropping, the 5th Air Force dropped 245 tons of bombs in the first 5 days of March in support of the landings on the Admiralties. Attack against Panapai Airstrip, New Ireland. A formation of B-24s of the 394th Squadron, 5th Bomb Group, strike at Panapai Airfield, New Ireland on March 19th. Panapai is a fighter strip about 3 miles to the southeast of the enemy bomber field at Cavier. The bombing run is made at an altitude of 14,200 feet. 55 tons of bombs are dropped on the runway, dispersal area, and fuel dumps. Anti-aircraft is slight, but accurate. The camera plane returned to base on 3 engines. A-20s of the 5th Air Force in a low-level attack on the Dagua airstrip at Wewak. Dagua is one of 4 strips at the important Japanese base of Wewak, New Guinea. Parafrag bombs land directly on the strip and in the revetment areas. A column of smoke hangs over the Dagua airfield as our planes leave. Target, Bucharest. The 15th Air Force sent 210 Liberators against the capital and chief city of Romania on April 24th. Bucharest is a main Balkan transportation center. From an altitude of 21,000 feet, 475 tons of bombs are released over the Bucharest railroad yards with excellent coverage. 500-pound demolition bombs are used. The 2 formations of B-24s are escorted by 140 Lightnings, 50 Thunderbolts, and 50 Mustangs. 40 enemy planes attempt interception. Target, Vierzon. On April 20th, a formation of B-24s heads for Vierzon, one of the many targets in France on that day. Heavy flak is encountered. An engine of the camera ship starts to burn. The cameraman was wounded on this mission. Vierzon, the target of this formation, is 110 miles south of Paris and 20 miles northwest of Bourges. The target area at Vierzon is well saturated with bomb hits. Target, Ham. On April 22nd, a formation of B-24s on a mission to bomb Ham, Germany, 110 miles northwest of Frankfurt, encounter extremely heavy flak. The target, a rail center. 185 Liberators and 475 Fortresses with strong fighter escort took part in the raid. They dropped 1,600 tons of bombs on freight and marshaling yards, scoring hits on rail lines, rolling stock, and a steel factory nearby. Black continued over the target. Bomb bursts may be seen in the center screen. There was more anti-aircraft fire on the way home. Heavy damage has been caused. Guided in by flares, a damaged B-24 returns from the raid at night for an emergency landing. Field lights were not on at the base because of an enemy air raid. The bomber, called the Z-Bar, crashed into the radar building at Hethel Airdrome and then caught fire. On the way home, the plane had its hydraulic system shot out by British ack-ack while flying over Norwich during an enemy air raid. Firefighting equipment was brought into play immediately after the crash, but the flames could not be controlled. Wreckage of both plane and building was searched for possible victims. There were no casualties among crew members of the plane, but one man in the radar building was killed in the accident. The gun-sight aiming point camera records fighter kills over Europe. An Me-109. A Focke-Wulf 190. Again, a Focke-Wulf 190. Another Focke-Wulf 190. One of our fighters attacks an E-boat. The Focke-Wulf 190. A pair of transport planes are attacked. A Focke-Wulf 200 caught right over an airdrome. A Junkers 88. By the same pilot, a Focke-Wulf 190. Target, Kaifeng, China. On April 28th, the formation of 25 B-24s of the 308th Bomb Group, 14th Air Force, based in the Chengdu area, set out on a mission to bomb two bridges on the Yellow River, 30 miles west of Kaifeng. 12 P-51s provide fighter cover. 100 and 250-pound bombs were dropped on the target area. The mission was requested by Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek to hold up anticipated Japanese troop movements for 48 hours over this nearly completed bridge. Only the rails had to be laid, an overnight job to make the bridge usable. The bomb run is made at 12,000 feet. Hits may be seen at the north end of the bridge where it joins the land. Medium ack-ack was encountered. There was no fighter interception. All our planes returned safely with no casualties. The mission, which took 8 hours and 15 minutes to perform, was a success. At a 7th Air Force base in Hawaii, a modified skeet shooting range has been set up as part of a gunnery refresher course in an attempt to duplicate air-to-air firing on the ground. The targets are clay pigeons thrown from high and low trap houses and simulate both incoming and outgoing targets. Instead of the standard 50 caliber weapon, shotguns are mounted in the position of airplane machine guns. Each man of a plane crew fires in the same position and with the same equipment as he would in the air. A consolidated tail turret is set up on the firing line. Pilot and co-pilot are in charge of the firing control, with an instructor on the interphone system to aid and grade the individual gunners of the crew. Fire control and intercommunication are corrected if necessary. The ability and coordination of the crew can be tested and improved here on the ground. Target, Hanapai Strip, Kavieng. A formation of B-24s of the 349th Squadron, 5th Bomb Group, strike at Hanapai Airfield, New Ireland on March 19th. Hanapai is a fighter strip about 3 miles to the southeast of the enemy bomber field at Kavieng, seen here on the approach to the target. The bomb run was made at an altitude of 15,300 feet. 55 tons of bombs are dropped on the runway, dispersal areas, and fuel dumps. The majority of the bombs hit the target area. Weather and visibility are good. Anti-aircraft fire is slight but accurate. There is no enemy fighter interception. Time-saving devices invented by a sergeant of the 9th Air Force Service Command saves thousands of man-hours. The old method of cutting vents in engine cowlings was a long and tedious process. First, a template was attached to the cowling so the outline of the vents could be marked. On a power-driven press, holes were made in each corner to allow for the entry of metal cutting shears. Each vent was then slowly cut out by hand, following along the previously inscribed outline. As a final step, the edges of the vents were filed smooth. This whole operation averaged about 16 hours. In the combat theaters, such time is precious. But a technical sergeant came up with an idea that changed all that. He designed an automatic punch press that now enables any mechanic to cut these vents in 1 minute. The punch press was made out of parts salvaged from scrap metal. It's estimated that this invention alone will save many thousands of man-hours. Using the punch press, the vents can now be cut out in 60 seconds. Another operation the sergeant improved was the method of removing engine mounting bolts. Previously, 20 minutes was required for the laborious process. This new torque wrench, designed and built by the sergeant, will do the same job in 4 minutes, a time saving of 500%. Once the wrench is set in position, the engine mounting bolt comes out easily. A ratchet in the driving sprocket makes for ease of operation in cramped quarters or in awkward positions. The new wrench is simply but sturdily built. For these and many other time and labor-saving inventions, the sergeant is decorated with the Legion of Merit Medal by the commanding general of the 9th Service Command. The other improvements were a development for centering a circular saw, a Lord Mount jig, a gun sight jig, cutting a 6-hour job to 60 seconds, and a broken spark plug remover which could do in 10 minutes a job that formerly took 8 hours. Biak Island is hit in a series of attacks by the Allied Air Force. On May 5th, liberators of the 13th Air Force, based on Mamoti Field in the Admiralties, take off for Biak. They are continuing a series of attacks started by the New Guinea-based 5th Air Force bombers. Anti-aircraft is encountered near the target. So are 15 Japanese fighters, some of which drop phosphorus bombs over the liberators. There are several near misses. Neither the Yak-Yak nor the aerial phosphorus bombs prove a serious problem during this period. A Zero goes down. The pilot parachutes out. When one Zero was hit, the phosphorus bomb attached to its fuselage exploded. 500-pound bombs are used. From an altitude of 12,000 feet, hits are scored on Mokma Airdrome. This important airdrome, which has been built up and fortified recently, is now the objective of our advancing ground troops on Biak Island. Its preliminary softening up, shown here, served to protect our amphibious task force against air attack. On May 9th, 35 liberators of the 13th Air Task Force, joined by P-40s of the 5th Air Force over Hollandia, pass over Mokma Field en route to attack Bosnik Village on Biak Island. This was a previously untouched target, with the innocent appearance of a native coastal village. 65 tons of bombs are dropped on Bosnik Village with good results. Heavy explosions are touched off by the bomb bursts. There are at least 8 or 9 major explosions. The density of the black and white smoke that billows from the scene of the explosions indicates the presence of concentrated supply dumps, probably oil and ammunition. Both piers at Bosnik are set afire, and the headquarters building probably destroyed. The initial landing on Biak Island by our amphibious task force was made just east of Bosnik Village 20 days after this air attack. There is little ack-ack over the target during this raid, but considerable flak was thrown up around Mokma, which the enemy apparently expected us to attack again. Our bombers returned to their base at Mamoti Airfield on recently captured Los Negros Island. The gun sight aiming point camera records fighter kills over Europe. A Focke-Wulf 190 is attacked. A Messerschmitt 109. Strafing of a Focke-Wulf 190 and a Messerschmitt 109. More strafing. A Heinkel caught on the ground. Hits inside an open hangar. An Me-109. Another Me-109. An airfield is dropped. Hits are scored on planes parked in front of hangars. Attacking locomotives and rolling stock. A twin-engine fighter is dropped. A flak tower. Direct hits cause this locomotive to explode. More trains. The jackpot. The communications network above Rome is attacked in an effort to choke off supplies for the German 14th Army to the south. P-47 fighter bombers concentrated on this area. These Thunderbolts are flown by a famous unit that has seen action in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, and Italy. Now, based on Corsica, they join the attack against Kesselring supply lines. May 1st, strafing and bombing a railroad tunnel at Terrazzano. Target, Civitavecchia, just west of Rome, May 7th. Starting at 7,000 feet, a formation of Thunderbolts dives on the harbor, each plane carrying 2 500-pound bombs. 2 large ships and several small ones may be seen tied up at the docks. Target, railroad tracks near Perugia. Starting at only 800 feet, P-47s bomb and strafe the railroad station and a train at Perugia, and strafe another target in the area. Target, Bagni de Casciana. Diving through very heavy flak, P-47s bomb and strafe ammunition and petrol dumps near Bagni. The pilot saw several small buildings blow up. Flames reached to 500 feet. Some smoke is white, some black, indicating ammunition and fuel fires. Target, motor transport north of Chiusi. A flight of P-47 strafes targets on the highway. A preceding plane in the flight may be seen firing during the run. Making a 180-degree peel-off, another Thunderbolt with a wing-mounted camera dives at the point where railroad tracks enter a tunnel. Hits are scored right at the mouth of the tunnel. Target, Monte Savino. The camera plane attacks a railroad bridge across a canal. Dive starts at 2,000 feet, pull out at 500. A preceding plane in the flight scores a hit on the railroad tracks at the top of the screen. D-Day. At an English harbor, vessels of all sizes are loaded, waiting for the signal that will start them on the trip to Normandy. Ships of the Invasion Armada are crowded with troops and materiel. A cameraman of the 4th Combat Camera Unit, attached to the 9th Air Force, makes the trip in this LST, along with other Air Force personnel who are to move in directly behind the advancing ground forces to set up airfields. The signal is given for the flotilla to move out. Church services. Some rest. The final briefing before going ashore. In the hills above the shore, about 25 enemy 88mm guns are concealed, which put down an effective fire on the beach. Self-propelled barges or floating docks, called the Rhine ferries, have been prepared to speed up the unloading. Weapons carriers, trucks, half-tracks, construction equipment are brought in right behind the ground troops. Sometimes engineer reconnaissance units land their equipment before the infantry has the beachhead under complete control. Allied planes and naval artillery shell and bomb enemy gun emplacements on the hill. Spitfires provide air cover for the disembarking troops. Successive waves of men and equipment land. Infantrymen, under sniper fire on the beach, clean the sand and salt water out of their rifles, while the Rhine ferries continue to pour men and supplies ashore. The motors of these vehicles have been waterproofed to permit driving them through the surf for a short distance. Bulldozers go ashore early. Speedy construction of airstrips on captured territory is extremely important. Troops on their way forward pass captured German snipers being led to the rear. Sappers operate mine detectors to clear a field selected as a site for an airstrip. A barrage balloon is quickly set up on the landing strip, which was completed in record time. One of the first transport planes lands on the new strip only 2 days after D-Day to evacuate wounded. The first casualties to be flown from this beachhead airstrip are transferred to the ambulance plane. Nurses are among the personnel of the 9th Air Force ambulance planes. Each plane carries 6 American nurses who are the first women of the invasion force to set foot on France. 4 9th Air Force Troop Carrier Command C-47s, loaded with medical officers and supplies, arrive at the new landing strip. German prisoners and injured French civilians are among the wounded evacuated by air. Flown back to England with Spitfire escort, the wounded will be treated under the most favorable conditions. When necessary, blood plasma is administered in the ambulance plane. These are American dead on the beachhead awaiting burial. Medical officers search for identification tags. Riflemen move up a road looking for snipers. Captured Germans are marched to a prisoner of war camp off the beachhead area. General Arnold makes his first visit to the beachhead, accompanied by General Spaatz. The first ambulance planes with American wounded arrive in England. A medical officer examines each man, whether he be an ally or an enemy, to determine the extent of his injuries. The waiting ambulances will take them to station hospitals. Poppies of Normandy are brought to England with the wounded. On the 12th of June, D-Day +6, cargo planes approach the coast of France on what has become a routine supply dropping mission. The C-47s release their parapacks over positions held by our advanced ground troops. Red and yellow parachutes ease down bundles of supplies near the crash-landed gliders of our airborne infantry. Mustang fighters of the 9th Air Force go out on continual sweeps over France against the Luftwaffe in the air and against the enemy's aerodromes and transportation facilities on the ground. Flying in formation, they head out across the channel. Gunsight aiming point cameras record action near the invasion coast. Flying through heavy flak, a fighter downs a twin-engined enemy. This German drops his flaming belly tank. And the pilot bails out. Another enemy fighter destroyed. Enemy aerodromes are struck. This is one of the reasons for the relative lack of activity on the part of the Luftwaffe against our beachhead. Focke-Wulf 190 caught while taking off. Railroad installations are bombed and stopped, crippling transportation facilities. Marauders of the 9th Air Force fly over the invasion surface fleet, past the beachhead to strike at enemy concentrations. The first Allied field hospital set up in France and fields littered with abandoned German equipment are passed on the way to the target. The Marauders dropped their bombs from 2,000 feet at railroad tracks and scored direct hits. During invasion activities, the B-26s bombed from lower altitudes to increase accuracy. the vicinity of Caen, one of the main enemy strongholds, is heavily bombed. Marauders attack the woods to the rear of the town, which conceal concentrations of enemy troops, vehicles, and tanks. Bombing from 2,000 feet, the B-26s are rocked by the concussion. Early in the morning, marauders bomb a wooded dispersal area south of Caen, which German tanks entered during the night for refueling. Nearby Allied troops were pulled back before the bombing. Target, the railway bridge over the Noiro River. Bombing altitude, again, 2,000 feet. En route back to base, the marauders pass over the Bay of the Seine, crowded with another invasion fleet. Fighter bombers, in cooperation with our ground forces and the drive on Rome, attack enemy transportation facilities in this area during the third week in May. Wing-mounted automatic cameras record the action. From an altitude of 600 feet, A-36s strop motor transport on Italian Highway number 6, the most direct road connecting Rome and Cassino. Target, a highway bridge at Civita Castellana, north of Rome. The bridge is stropped and 500-pound bombs are dropped. Approximate altitude during the attack, 300 feet. Target, a road near Frosinone, southeast of Rome. The fighter bombers dropped motor transport on the highway and bombed the road. Another run in the same area. 2 trucks are stropped. Target, a railroad bridge at Monte Cicevino. Armed with 2 500-pounders, this A-36 starts its dive at 7,000 feet. Target, Setse, on a lateral road connecting the 2 important Italian West Coast highways, the Via Castellina and the Appian Way. A road junction northwest of the town is bombed. Target, a railroad tunnel north of Terracina. The tunnel was on a rail line that was one of the main escape routes for the German army in their retreat northward. The railroad was bombed and stropped from about 2,000 feet. Target, motor transport on the roads near Castro di Volci. Near the 5th Army front, A-36s strop and bomb enemy trucks. This pilot follows the twisting course of a valley, looking for targets on a highway perched on the hillside. He hurdles a mountain ridge and continues his strafing on the other side. Target, Setse. During the advance on Rome, enemy transportation facilities are harassed from the air. This A-36, with a wing-mounted camera, dives on a roadblock from 6,000 feet, releases two 500-pound bombs, and pulls out at 1,500 feet, strafing during the dive. The target area is obscured by dust from previous bomb bursts. Target, motor transport near Velletri. Strafing from an altitude of 500 feet, A-36 fighter bombers destroy 40 enemy motor transport confirmed and 36 damaged. Target, highway north of Rome. A-36s on an armed reconnaissance mission shoot up a truck convoy. On another mission in the Rome area near the mouth of the Tiber, the fighter bombers again attack enemy motor transport and leave several trucks in flames. Target, motor transport near Castellana. Each plane in the formation carries two 500-pound bombs and strafes during the run. Target, the Vergata Bridge, southwest of Bologna. Two waves of Mitchells, based on Corsica, aim their bomb loads at the bridge over the Reno River on one of the main rail lines linking southern Italy with the north. Target, Genoa Harbor. Mitchells, carrying 500-pound bombs, raid the Genoa dock area without fighter escort. Flak over the target is moderate but extremely accurate. We suffer no losses. Hits are scored on the docks, and shipping in the harbor is damaged. Target, Pavia. On May 24th, our tactical air force struck Pavia. No flak or fighters are encountered. Broken clouds interfered with visibility. Target, Bazkrupa, Yugoslavia. German troops had occupied the town, forcing the partisans to take up positions in the outskirts. Liberators, based in Italy, dropped 40 100-pound general-purpose bombs each. The bombing run is made at an altitude of 15,000 feet. In the first formation, about two-thirds of the bombs cover the left of the target. Bombs of the second formation hit the end of the town. Near misses are scored on the bridge. Smoke of the bombing is visible 30 to 40 miles away. Target, Banja Luka, Yugoslavia. On May 29th, selective bombing is used by B-24s to destroy another German-occupied town. Flak is encountered over the target. On this one day, several other Yugoslavian towns containing concentrations of German troops are attacked from the air to aid the partisan army. 290 liberators, escorted by 90 Lightnings, released 540 tons of bombs over enemy targets in Yugoslavia in one day's operations. From a base on Los Negros Island in the Admiralties, a jungle patrol sets out for adjacent Manus Island, accompanied by an officer and 2 enlisted men of the 6th Combat Camera Unit. Starting from cavalry headquarters at Drobwy on the south coast, they wade ashore at Paley Village. The combat cameramen are as heavily armed as the rest of the patrol. They march through heavy jungles and deep mangrove swamp. 2 hours out, the point man killed 5 Japs, caught by surprise in the center of the trail. Our troops cautiously close in on a Jap hut. Inside, they find 9 dead Japs killed the previous day by another patrol. On one of the bodies are found an American fountain pen and cigarette case. They return to Drobwy to spend the night. Next day, they hike to the Ubi River on a 3-day patrol. The men board outrigger canoes manned by friendly natives who take them up the Ubi for 2 hours to the mouth of the river. Alert for snipers and alligators, the men stand or kneel in a circle on the canoe platform, guns facing in all directions. 4 Japs washing clothes in the river were fired at from the canoes, but it was impossible to verify the results. The patrol pushes on through a tropical downpour. They wade ashore through mud and press on into the jungle. It's estimated that there are about 250 Japs on this part of the island. The patrol camps at Bakanu. Shelter halves are raised, and the men try to dry their clothing and equipment. Machine guns cover all approaches to the camp, and men not on guard duty relax. The next morning, the patrol continues in the rain. At 1100 hours, a large concentration of the enemy is discovered. 17 are killed, and a single survivor, a sergeant major, is captured. He's the only prisoner taken during this patrol. 47 Japs were killed. Crossing the Watani River on their way out of the jungle, the men hold their weapons high. 2 snipers who fired on the patrol were killed at this point. The prisoner, beginning to weaken, stumbles in the current. At the next stop for rations, the prisoner collapses and has to be carried on an improvised litter for the rest of the journey. This is difficult through Jap-infested jungle and 7 miles of mangrove swamps. It's necessary to give the prisoner frequent doses of atabrine through the night. By morning, he's improved sufficiently so that it's apparent he would survive the trip out. The stretcher is loaded on an outrigger to be taken downstream, where the patrol will transfer to an LCM. These are some trophies of a successful patrol. The prisoner responding to treatment is able to sit up in the LCM as the patrol heads for home. At Red Beach on Los Negros Island, the Japanese sergeant major is conducted through the camp and turned over to the intelligence officer for interrogation. Furnished with clean clothing, the prisoner is placed in the regular stockade. Target, Mulhouse. In the campaign to disrupt rail communications in France, the marshalling yards at Mulhouse were attacked several times during May. Liberators, escorted by Lightnings, Thunderbolts, and Mustangs, made this raid on the 11th. An Me-109 is shot down by a P-47. The pilot can be seen parachuting down. The freight yards here at Mulhouse and at nearby Belfort and Epinal were hit on the same day with fair results. Mulhouse freight yards are attacked again on May 25th. 350 tons of bombs are dropped by formations of 135 heavy bombers. On this raid, the engine roundhouse, the coaling plant, and locomotive shed are damaged, and many hits are scored on the tracks. The air campaign against German installations in France continues. Liberators of the 8th Air Force pass over surface vessels bound for France and fly over the invasion coast 6 days after D-Day. This smoking target has just been bombed by another group. The objectives of this attack are an airfield and railroad bridges outside of Conches. Hits are scored in the target area. The target of the day for these A-20s of the 9th Air Force is Lycée, a village on the west coast of the Norman Peninsula, 30 miles south of Cherbourg. The highway and railroad bridges are bombed. Another group of havocs, striking about 75 miles south of Cherbourg, attacked Saint-Hilaire. The railroad bridge under attack is the main line to enemy-occupied Cherbourg. Marshalling yards are the target of a third group of A-20s. Many rail yards between the Seine and the Belgian border were bombed during the second week after invasion. Ninth Air Force marauders, escorted by P-47s based on a new strip in Normandy, set out to destroy a Nazi petrol dump near Bologna, about 13 miles south of Cherbourg. German tanks and motorized vehicles use this petrol dump for refueling. Gunsight aiming point cameras record American fighter plane activity after D-Day. Our dropping paths cut through trains, planes, trucks, and enemy troop concentrations. Along the Normandy invasion coast from Ouistreham on the River Rhône towards Cherbourg, aerial and ground reconnaissance affords a study of German defenses and the effectiveness of our bombardment. Targets were all of a tactical nature. The beach area at Ouistreham shows many shelters and pillboxes of reinforced concrete and landing craft obstacles. South of the town was a large gun battery, light anti-aircraft guns, an observer's post, and 3 shelters. B-17s hit the area heavily with 500 and 1,000-pound bombs. At Saint-Aubin, a few miles to the west, sunken and subterranean gun emplacements of reinforced concrete predominate. But in many of these emplacements, no guns had been mounted, indicating the fortifications had not been completed. There were many beach obstacles in this area. German demolition squads had been active here before evacuating the town. At Longue, defenses were much more formidable, and 12 squadrons of B-17s, each carrying 12 500-pound and 2 1,000-pound bombs, pounded heavy gun positions here. 2 positions observed from the air were on the ridge of a high cliff overlooking the channel. All points were connected by trenches or tunnels. 4 large concentrations of bombs hit this target area. Bombing had been very heavy, yet generally only superficial damage was done to the superstructures of the guns. The 6-inch gun batteries were apparently to be used against shipping. All construction in the area was of reinforced concrete, 6 feet thick. Ammunition vaults, found intact, were well stocked. At Saint-Pierre-du-Mont, a strongly defended and bitterly contested point on the invasion coast was Point d'Eau, a jutting cliff that dropped 75 feet to a rock-strewn beach. Here, a heavily armed fortress commanded a 270-degree scan of the coastline. It contained an elaborate observation post and living quarters. Pillboxes dotted the area. Ammunition vaults were underground. Deep sunken emplacements for 15.5-centimeter guns were built of reinforced concrete, much of it 12 feet thick. But no guns of this caliber had been mounted. In 2 sites, telegraph poles had been installed to simulate guns. In the drive for Cherbourg, American troops passed through the town of Boulogne, only 10 miles away, the day after its capture. So that our advance through the town would not be slowed, bulldozers went immediately at the job of clearing wreckage made by our bombers. B-26s had dropped 250 and 500-pounders, devastating the center of the town where the Germans had concentrated their defenses. Here, a heavy bomb fell just outside an old church. Found in the midst of this area was a large communication system thought to be used as the junction for telegraph and telephone lines of the Cherbourg sector. Its headquarters, sunken 25 feet in the ground, was constructed of reinforced concrete 10 feet thick. But the building had been damaged to such a degree that effective examination was impossible. It appeared that the structure had been blown up from the inside. Our demolition engineers raised remaining hazards to clear the road for supplies and reinforcements. Cherbourg was now in sight, and the battle for the peninsula was entering the decisive phase. On June 26th, an enemy strong point overlooking Cherbourg is shelled. Concentrated air attacks and heavy artillery fire brought smoking ruins, but advancing infantry supported by tanks had to fight street by street before the last pockets of resistance were wiped out. Damage to docks was extensive. The Germans sank all smaller vessels in the harbor and blocked the largest deep-water dock by sinking a ship at the entrance of the inner roadstead. But depth and width of entrances through the breakwaters made further blocking impossible. Landing craft could still unload in sheltered water across flat beaches which flanked the port area. On June 27th, D-Day plus 21, Cherbourg fell. Some 25,000 German prisoners were taken in the fighting for the city. Although a few thousand of the enemy may have escaped by sea, these prisoners and men and women collaborators were marched to prison camps. Many Nazis were left behind. At Cap de la Hague, on the very tip of the Cherbourg Peninsula, the enemy still held a heavy gun installation. 9th Air Force marauders flew the channel to silence German guns that continued to shell Cherbourg 15 miles away 2 days after the fall of the city. "500-pound bombs dropped onto the target from 2,500 feet blast the gun emplacements of this last German position on the Cherbourg Peninsula. Target, Saint-Hilaire. Air attacks against important points on the peninsula continued as the drive turned south again after Cherbourg's fall. A-20s bombed a railway bridge at Saint-Hilaire. Because the main Paris-Cherbourg rail line to the north was in Allied hands, Germans had to use this branch line to move supplies and equipment to this part of the front. The way was being opened to Saint-Lô on the main crossroads whose possession would seal the entire Normandy Peninsula at its base. Gunsight aiming point cameras record fighter activity over Europe. Enemy airfields are strafed and parked planes destroyed. Here an Me-210 is set afire. An Me-109. Inland waterways are strafed as part of the attack against enemy transportation. Plumes of steam mark the destruction of locomotive boilers. Wolves are destroyed in the air and on the ground. An Me-109 is shot down. Target, Roland. During a week in which the chief target was Germany's oil industry, B-17 strike at Roland's refineries on June 21st. This city harbors one of the main producing centers of synthetic oil. On the same day, other refineries at Osterborn and Bremen were being damaged extensively, and more than 1,100 heavy bombers escorted by more than 1,200 fighters were hitting Berlin in what is reported to have caused more damage than any other daylight attack. After an effective attack, the Roland bombers flew on to bases in Russia. Target, Drohobych, Poland. From their bases in Russia, the forts taxi past an old Russian biplane as on July 6th, they start their return flight to England via Italy. En route, they fly at 19,000 feet toward the shuttle target, which is Drohobych in Poland. At Drohobych, the bombs fall on large oil refineries. The principal target, a synthetic oil plant, is totally destroyed. Bomb bursts may be seen through heavy smoke at the bottom of the screen. The bombers continue on to Italy to end the second leg of the unique large-scale shuttle operation. Target, Béziers. To complete the triple play, the B-17 set out for their home base in England and en route attack targets in France. They pass over Corsica on their flight from Italy. In southern France, railroad yards at Béziers are hit. They, together with other yards at Montpellier, feel the weight of 630 tons of bombs. Then, with their Mustang escort, the forts fly north to Great Britain, completing the first England to Russia to Italy to England shuttle begun on June 21st. Gunsight aiming point cameras record fighter activity over Europe after D-Day. To tie up the enemy's lines of communication, trains, railroad marshalling yards, motor transport, and inland waterways in France are struck. Truck convoys are attacked and set afire. Tugs and barges are struck. Enemy aircraft are destroyed. Many freight cars parked on a siding are destroyed in several passes. Truk, one of the main Jap naval bases in the Pacific, is raided on July 2nd by liberators based on Eniwetok. Since Eniwetok was taken last February, it has become as extensive a staging base for our forces as it was for the Japs. Army and Navy aircraft crowd the airstrip. The harbor holds a great fleet, including aircraft carriers of the Essex class. First struck by naval aircraft on February 16th, Truk was bombed during July at will, almost daily, depending on the weather. On this strike, each B-24 carried 40 100-pound general-purpose bombs. The objective was heavy anti-aircraft gun emplacements on East Mohn Peninsula. The run was made at 18,000 feet. Hits on the target were 90%. Jap fighters intercepted the formation but kept out of range and did no damage. They withdrew after 15 minutes. On July 7th, B-24s dropped their 500-pound bombs on naval installations at Dublin. 40 tons found gun positions, a seaplane base, docks, and a warehouse. The most serious interception attempted recently cost the Japs 5 out of 14 planes. We lost 1 Liberator, only loss from nearly 100 sorties flown against Truk in a week. A Zeke dives through the formation. The following week, bad weather stopped raids 3 days. Then, raids were routine until July 13th, when 15 to 20 Jap planes ineffectively attacked our formations with phosphorus bombs and machine gun and cannon fire. Naval base at Dublin, anti-aircraft batteries and airfields there and at Eton were principal targets. Large fires indicated heavy damage. The Japs lost 5 planes, 4 probables, and 5 damaged. Several B-24s were hit by flak, but none was lost. A pilot's halo circles the shadow of a bomber. This rarely photographed phenomenon was caught on the return trip. In northern Corsica, operations of a 12th Air Force fighter group receives a call that one of its pilots has bailed out in the open sea north of Rome. The deputy controller, in constant contact with all planes, gets the message. In the fixer room, men plot bearings taken on the crippled plane by various fixer stations on the coast, and the fixer teller marks the spot where the man has gone into the sea. The location is marked by a pip on a plotting board and is also spotted on a large wall map. This information is also passed on to the fighter plotter, who notes it on an interceptor board. From these markings, the deputy controller plots the course that rescue planes and boats will take. The sector controller, in charge of the whole operation, gives orders and all information to the rescue parties. At a walrus base, the pilot on duty receives word of the ditching over a phone reserved for rescue calls. He and his gunner put on their Mae Wests and gather up their gear, while the ground crew prepares the plane for immediate takeoff. The pilot checks the position on the wall map and confers with the squadron commanding officer, who has been studying and correlating all information. Tie-down lines are cast off the standby walrus, and the engine is started as the pilot and gunner run to their stations. These planes are always alerted and ready for takeoff at a moment's notice. The walrus taxis down the runway, and within minutes of the SOS being received at ASR headquarters, it's lifting into the air on its way to locate the downed airman. Meanwhile, the distress call has been relayed to a high-speed launch base. A crew is alerted while all available facts are noted. Crew members of the standby rescue launch stop whatever work they're doing and prepare to cast off. Lines are let go, engines are started, hatches are closed, and the boat slides away from the pier. As the rescue launch moves out of the harbor, the stern gunner takes his place. And by the time the boat passes the lighthouse at the end of the breakwater and heads for open sea, all hands are at their posts. Now, with the Walrus and the HSL both on their way, close coordination is maintained. As the search proceeds, any new information received at ASR headquarters is radioed to the rescue craft en route and their course revised accordingly. Once the downed flyer is sighted, the Walrus circles the spot as a guide to the rescue launch that is now rapidly approaching. If necessary, a smoke bomb is released to indicate the flyer's position. When the launch nears the pilot, a cargo net is put over the side, and crewmen stand by to climb down and help him aboard. As the HSL approaches the life raft, a line is thrown. The rescued man is hauled alongside and helped aboard. Clean, dry clothes are waiting for him, and so is a shot of rum. Later, on the way back to base, he gives the details of his ditching to the captain. Close cooperation between American and British forces has saved another pilot to fly again. Fighter planes patrolling western sectors of France continue to shoot up road, rail, and water transport. Gun sight aiming point cameras record some of their activities. Black bursts from this well-defended area. Robot bomb, trailing 20 feet of flame, is attacked by fighters as it heads for England. Its wingspan is 16 feet. Overall length, 25 feet, 4.5 inches. Gyro-controlled, it's driven by a jet-propelled engine. It consumes about a gallon of low-grade aviation gas per mile, limiting range of the present V-1 to about 150 miles. However, larger bombs have appeared, indicating the range has already increased. This type carries a little more than a ton of explosive in its nose. Care must be taken in shooting them down, lest they fall in populated areas, and lest the fighter plane itself be destroyed by the explosion. On September 18th, 10th Air Force Mitchells bombed the railroad junction in the town of Padoue. Throughout September and October, the air front mounted steady activity in this area west of Mandalay, where the only main railway through the Chindwin Valley supplies the Japs in North Burma. Strikes like this one have done much to halt transportation of those supplies. On September 23rd, Butelin Bridge, the only other secondary rail line west of Mandalay, was attacked. 9 Mitchells laid the pattern on this vital target. 2 runs were made. The first pattern of 250-pound general-purpose bombs started on the railroad tracks at the southern approach to the bridge. Butelin Bridge is 66 miles west of Mandalay and 20 miles north of Moniwa. The second pattern landed in the water north of the bridge without damaging it. This strike, too, was an attempt to check the flow of supplies from main southern bases and starve out the Japs in the north. On the same day, September 23rd, 6 14th Air Force Liberators hit the Burma Road at Che Phang to prevent supplies from reaching the Lungling front. Object was to cause landslides, which formed effective blocks on both Burma and bypass roads. 100% hits in the target area closed the road. On October 2nd, 7 Mitchells based in India struck barracks and stores at Kutkai with 500-pound RDX bombs. The pattern extended from the center of the target area just east of the Burma Road to the western portion. No enemy action was encountered. All aircraft returned with almost empty gas tanks. 2 other Mitchells had been forced to salvo bombs and returned before the target was reached. On October 6th, 11 Indian-based Mitchells bombed the railway bridge at Borgio. Here, the only rail line east of Mandalay runs to Lushio, 46 miles to the northwest, which is a large supply center and distribution point for the Japs in western and northwestern Burma. 26 miles southwest of Borgio, the formation met heavy ack-ack, but only 2 planes were superficially hit. Bombs hit railroad tracks on both sides of the bridge. The first pattern placed 4 500-pounders on the tracks 50 feet from the bridge's east approach. The second pattern struck the tracks on the west approach. On the return trip, 1 squadron was attacked by 9 Jap fighters. In a battle lasting an hour and a half, 1 B-25 and 3 Jap planes were shot down. Total mission time, 4.5 hours. On October 10th, 12 Indian-based Mitchells bombed Moniwa on the secondary railroad line about 60 miles west of Mandalay. Weather was good with scattered clouds, and the one large cloud over the target did not interfere with bomb sighting. The pattern ran from north to south, giving good coverage across the central and eastern portions of the target. Smoke from hits rose to 3,000 feet. 20-millimeter anti-aircraft burst among the formation without causing damage. No enemy aircraft appeared at any stage of the trip. Widespread strikes like these, continuing throughout October, considerably weakened Jap defenses. And by November, British and Chinese forces were starting a major new offensive along the entire front in North Burma. On September 29th at Numphur Island, 13th Air Force heavy bomb groups were briefed for the longest mission ever made in the Southwest Pacific. Connoisseur and Strip, Numphur.
In trip. Gentlemen, the first time in all of our tour here in the Southwest Pacific, we are now going to start work on a genuine strategic target. We have the opportunity of beginning the destruction of the Japs' oil supply, undertaking to destroy one of his principal sources of aviation fuel and of fuel oil. The detailed breakdown of the A3 part of the target turn over to Colonel Hudson. General Matheny said this mission is aimed at taking out the oil installations at Balikpapan, Borneo. Borneo is located some 700 miles southwest of the southern tip of Mindanao in the Philippines. The overall mission entails a round trip of 2,369 statute miles. To our knowledge, that is the longest formation flight ever undertaken in the Southwest Pacific. The basic plan is to attack the target employing 3 groups. Each group will be split into 2 12-plane formations. Each formation will attack the target 20 minutes after formation that has preceded it. We will depart Noompur beginning at 0040 tomorrow morning, proceeding by individual airplane along the route to the assembly points. The route, Noompur, around the northern part of the Vogelkop, along the equator, through the southern Halmaheras, entering the Gulf of Tomini in the Celebes Island, proceeding to your respective assembly points. Captain Klein, Intelligence Section, will give you full target information, showing the layout of the targets, the axis of attack, and the different targets selected for each unit. Captain Klein?
This is a blow-up showing the major installations in the northern part of Balikpapan area, including the Pandansari refinery, the Adilianu plant, and the lube oil and paraffin refinery located in the northern part. The cracking plant, another installation located in the southern part of the town. The target for our two groups is the Pandansari refinery. Pandansari refinery has been producing aviation gasoline for the Japanese. Blow-up of the refinery area shows that in this section, 500 feet square, you'll have the heart of the target. In there are the three pipe stills, very large buildings with refractionating columns, the powerhouse, and the pumping plant. These circles over here represent the receiving tanks. To the northwest of that particular area is the powerhouse unit. In that is a large powerhouse with a very tall tower used in connection with the chemical water treating unit here. The targets have been set up so that the center of each of these is within the center of the target areas. As a matter of fighter interception, you may expect to receive some, probably in the neighborhood of 25 aircraft. In all likelihood, you will receive them before hitting the target area. The destruction of the Pandansari refinery will be almost immediately felt by the Japanese in their air combat effectiveness in this theater. Lieutenant Bizier will now give you the anti-aircraft defenses as they affect this target. Lieutenant Bizier.
The anti-aircraft defenses, Balikpapan, consists of 34 guns. 2 of these are known to be 127 millimeter or 5-inch with the usual naval director. 7 of these guns are at Cape Penajam, 6 at Cape Bateau, and the remainder are in the Balikpapan Peninsula itself. The flak analysis of this gun disposition gives us the following relative effectiveness of the AA fire. The best axis of attack is on a heading of 240 degrees, where your relative effectiveness is 250. The worst axis of attack is a 120-degree heading, where your relative effectiveness approaches 575. The headings to be used, or the axis of attack to be used on this raid, are 270 and 279, and they are very close to being the best that we can get on this target. If there are no questions, that is all.
From Numpha, the bombers followed the equator through the Gulf of Tomini to their assembly point and then to the target. 70 liberators made this first daylight strike on Borneo. More than 30 Jap fighters intercepted viciously for almost 2 hours. 7 Zeros were down. We lost 3 bombers. Intense flak persisted from the time the formation reached the coast, went over the target, and out again. 110 tons of bombs were dropped. Hampering cloud cover made bombing reports uncertain, but 67 hits were visible, and heavy damage was observed as smoke rose 6,000 feet. Pandansari refineries were principal target, but oil tanks north of Balikpapan were also hit. On the way home, some B-24s landed at Morotai in the Halmaheras. This 24 chose one of the 4 strips under construction, which had been cleared but not rolled. The belly landing was without crew injury, although the plane was damaged. Again, on October 3rd, Balikpapan was heavily raided by 48 Numfa-based 13th Air Force Liberators. Each plane carried 10 250-pound demolition bombs, and this time 2 auxiliary gas tanks. The Japs, on the alert after the attack of September 30th, sent up 40 to 50 interceptors. In an hour-long battle, 19 Jap fighters were shot down, with 5 probable. Our losses were heavy, too. 7 libs did not return. 46 tons were dropped on Pandansari refinery and bivouacs nearby. This time, the target was clear, and despite heavy anti-aircraft fire, the assault on what General MacArthur termed the most lucrative strategic target in the Pacific paid off in heavy damage. But again on the way home, 3 more Liberators crash-landed on an emergency strip at Morotai. On October 10th, more than 125 fighter-escorted Liberators struck once more at Balikpapan. Each plane carried 5 500-pounders and 3,500 gallons of gas. Phosphorus bombs augmented flak, which was light and inaccurate. 160 tons of bombs virtually demolished cracking and paraffin plants. Large-scale attacks continued through October. The 13th Air Force was out to erase the essential Jap oil centers of Balikpapan, the Ploiești of the Pacific.